Welcome everybody to our fifth episode. Yes? Fifth episode. Wait, is it
I
fifth?
think so. I
Yeah,
don't even
fifth,
know.
fifth, fifth. Yeah, we had James Wheeler last time. And yeah, today's our fifth episode. Today we have no guests. It's only me and Brandon today, but we have a very interesting topic we want to discuss about. It's a very big one. I think we want to talk about it because we both are in. We do run into where we have partners that don't the whole process of a bodybuilding show. Some conflicts we may run into, and we wanted to address that and potentially ways to handle that or handle these kind of situations. But before we get into that, Brandon, how's prep going for you? It's really March right now. It's beginning of March, and we're technically just really like 9.5, almost like 8 weeks away from your first show.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, man.
really getting there.
I am feeling good this week just because I had a diet break. So if anybody's watching this and doesn't understand what a diet break is, essentially I just brought my calories up to maintenance for a full week, and carbs are up, energy is up. A lot of the symptoms that I was feeling before kind of dissipated, but now I'm going to be going back into it. So I'm just excited for this final push into the show. But yeah, before this, before the diet break, was definitely feeling some symptoms of more so mental symptoms, like just like more irritability, more kind of overwhelm, more a little bit more food focus for sure, but I've definitely dealt with more food focus in past preps. But I just knew that with these symptoms starting to come up, I just was like, okay, like I should probably have a break now rather than later, just to ensure that okay, we get these symptoms down so I can really push for this last 8 weeks before the show. Um, I've noticed in last preps, I'm bad for underplaying symptoms sometimes. So like I'll be like, oh, like no, I'm fine, and then I'll hit like a wall. I often find like if I don't have a deload or not a deload, but a diet break, I find myself getting sick when I'm having these very severe diet symptoms. I always end up catching a cold. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to do that before I get sick or before the symptoms start to really flare up. So I know I was actually watching some old videos of Alberto Nunez, like I think his prep in like 2021 or something like that, and just about how he was trying to reduce the symptoms of prep as long as he possibly could. And it wasn't until like the last like 4 or 5 weeks where where he actually felt like extremely dieted. So that's what I'm trying to do for myself is really push those symptoms off. So like I know probably within another 2 weeks, I'll probably start really feeling some pretty gnarly symptoms from prep. But I just wanted to push that off as long as I possibly can to feel as healthy as I can so I can keep this prep going for a longer duration. As I feel like my last prep, I was kind of like with Jeff, I was being fairly transparent, but sometimes I feel like I should be like, I always downplay sometimes the symptoms and then they just catch up to me and I'm like, okay, I can't keep doing this. Like that's kind of what happened towards the last prep because I was gonna do another show, but I was just like, man, I just mentally can't handle it. So this time I'm trying to really keep those symptoms down so that I can maintain this prep for longer than last year.
How about
So
how's your condition though? Is it, coming together after a full week? Like, what was your body fluctuation before the diet break and now 1 week after the diet break?
yeah, so I was around 173. Like I was getting low weigh-ins around 173, probably averaging I think it was 178. This week my average is I think around 179. So I had some weigh-ins of like 180 and everything like that, but I got a lot more fullness back. Like I even look a bit more conditioned now than I did before. So I think I dissipated some water as well. Um, so yeah, I think I'm in a good spot. Like again, when I did the BC Cup last year, a lot of guys were coming in very full, but weren't quite as sharp as me. So
Mhm.
like I don't care too much if I'm a little bit less conditioned for that first show, but just bringing a lot of fullness. And then when it comes to the WMBF, I'll have a little bit more time to get a little bit more body fat off for the Kelowna show. And then if I do classic, I'll have about a month or so to get a little bit more off. So I'm trying to just time it in a way that I'm not like way too ahead, but I'm not like really far behind.
So what you're saying is that you're actually literally planning for classic physique for Edmonton.
Yeah. I'm just trying to make it that I'm gonna be have enough time to get to like that style of conditioning for then, because I know if
All right.
I don't want to be like finishing the Kelowna show and be like, yeah, there's no way I'm gonna have the conditioning for classic. So yeah,
All right, we'll keep
but
it in the down low then. So
yeah.
now let's just we'll just kind of sidetrack a little bit because I'm interested in what your thoughts are going to be. So what would you think that you'll fit better in, like classic physique or bodybuild at this, certain body type that you have?
It's tough because like for me, I feel like I don't have extremely broad shoulders and a very small waist. Like my
Mhm.
waist, like I do have like good abs, but I
Oh yeah,
do
absolutely.
have like a bit of a wider waist compared to some of these other guys.
Yeah.
Well, then I don't quite have the size I feel for. I'm just like I'm kind of like in the middle there, so I'm like I think classic will probably suit me better just because I'm not as muscled. And then if I yeah, like so I'm thinking classic was likely the better way for me to go. And if I get my posing down for that,
Yeah.
I think that's probably going to be the best route for me.
So, WNBF has finally released their reel on the not entirely releasing the judging criteria, but the main criteria for mandatory poses for classic physique on Instagram. So if you haven't checked it out, check it out. I think all platforms for WNBF Canada has shared that reel, including the main Canada one and Edmonton, and I think Vancouver, of course. So if you guys have not checked it, so you can go check it out. They are a little bit different from mandatory poses compared to bodybuild. I think they have like one hand open on some of the front and back double biceps. Um,
I actually didn't check it out. I still gotta look at that reel. I
Yeah,
actually,
so I know some of you if you're listening you can't see this, but then there I'm just gonna show you here. If you're watching YouTube, you'll probably see it. So their front double bicep for battle body was basically just as so, and for classic, I think they have one hand open and higher like that, and that goes for back double bicep as well. Then there's side chest and side tricep. I think you hold the first position just like how you would in bodybuild, and they'll rotate their thigh outwards.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
think they
think they have it.
got Chris Elkin to do the demonstration on the reel. So if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. And that goes for you too.
Yeah.
I think that's their mandatory, and then you have a favorite pose. They have abs and abs and thighs. I forgot if they had that for bodybuilders. Shoot.
Yeah, they'll have that for bodybuilding too. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, then I think that's about it. I think you also get like one or two favorite poses for classic physique.
Yeah, I know for CPA they had the one like favorite classic physique pose. I'm not sure for yeah WMBF. I'll have to look at that reel and
Yeah.
see.
They have like one or two favorite poses for classic physique. I think it does depend on time, given they do have quite a bit of poses to get through. Same with bodybuild, they have the symmetry round and the muscularity round, so you'll still hold those poses for front lat spread and front double bis. Those are still all there. It's the same as for bodybuilding. But
Gotcha.
yeah, it's going to be exciting for us to see it in for WNBF Vancouver at about same time as you, like next in the next 8.5 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, that sucks because I wanted to come out to Vancouver, but I'm just like I was so like it's just if I go to Vancouver, like yeah, it's I gotta get a hotel and stuff, and I gotta it's just a little bit more of a process. Whereas WMBF or CPA
Kelowna,
beat
yeah.
up, it's just right there. All my family's there. It's just it's nice from that perspective.
I
But
have a couch if you want to crash.
well, I haven't paid for the show cost for BC Cup, so you never know.
No, for real?
Yeah, I've been just holding off on it for. I should probably pay for it this month though, because I know they'll probably be going up pretty soon.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Because I know they're for even for WNBF, I think the late not the late cost, but the late registration fee goes up for like almost $200, $250 for WNBF. I think it's for after April, where we're literally like 4 weeks out from the show. And I don't remember when the registration closes. I think it's also somewhere around that time as well.
I think sometimes they'll do it like up to like the week before. Like I've seen that before. I don't know if you guys are changing it this year, but yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea. For BC Cup, for CPA, I think they can you actually like just sign up on the day of the check-in?
I'm not sure to be honest. I'm sure if I like reached out and it was like a last minute thing and like because I've competed with them before, they might do something like that. But I don't know. I don't know how much that would mess them up with like classes and stuff. But yeah, I'm not sure to be honest. I know a lot of those federations like it's always better to have more people, so sometimes they'll make an exception.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, man, how's your prepping been going?
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up the diet break. Because for somehow I struggled the same thing, and I'm doing something similar to what you did last prep. I was trying to push off. Well, I'm actually so caught up in life stuff that I kind of ignored what I really needed. I was just feeling everything at the moment, and I didn't identify the fact that I needed a diet break. My body weight hasn't went down for 2 weeks. I was sitting at 143, 145 for 2 weeks in a row. However, when we're looking at photos, we're looking at condition. Condition definitely went down. And Brian did mention that you could potentially be stress. It could potentially be what is that called? A water retention. I'm just I don't understand the fact that I'm holding water, however the condition's going down. So that's not something that I would probably chase after. He did mention that, I did also say, my performance is going down, my mood swings are getting more and more serious. Therefore, he gave me a diet break for this week. So this is my third day for the diet break. I think my calories is actually way above maintenance right now. So my maintenance is thought to be about 25 to 2600. He's letting me eat to 27 to 2900.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So like maybe a very minor surplus kind of thing.
Very, very minor, yeah. For just this week. It's really just this weekend, and we'll dial back next week. And then the fact that my body weight hasn't really fluctuated that much. So I weighed myself this morning and I'm still at 143. It's
Nice.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. I do feel better for 2 days of feeding, and again today, and this week is also deload in terms of training. I do believe I'm very, very close to stage conditioning, and I am 10 weeks or 9.5, yeah, 9.5 to 10 weeks away from Kelowna. Uh, I don't know, I'm expecting to probably feed into the show just like last time. I'm not sure how many weeks out we're going to start feeding, and I'm actually very suspicious if I will be able to reach what is 62 kilos in pounds. Um, Probably about the 140 pound mark. So that was my stage weight last time. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to reach that this year. I'm a little bit concerned, but I'm not sure if I should be.
Well, you might just have more tissue, more muscle mass on you, so you literally don't have to get to that weight, right? So I feel like that's probably a big component to that.
Yeah, I would want to think that as well. I hope that is actually true. 3 years of, being an off season, putting on 3 kilos of tissue. For me, that's a little bit of a stretch, especially at my age. Um, so that's just something that it's in the back of my mind, but we'll see. We'll just do our best moving forward.
I was just gonna say, with the feeding into the show last year, maybe explain to the audience like what that looked like for you when you guys were feeding into it. Like
Oh,
how quickly did you guys increase calories or carbs or
oh,
fats or whatever?
oh yeah, that's a really good question. So I wouldn't a very common tactic a lot of bodybuilders would probably use. It's better now. People would start quote unquote carbo loading into the show. Mainly, usually like 1 week out of the show or during peak week, they'll start feeding into the show, increasing carbohydrates um, every single day. And then it will just suck into the muscle and it'll look more full on stage. So for my last prep, we achieved condition. We looked really flat 6 weeks, 8 weeks from the show. And we kind of held it at maintenance. So for me, it was like 20, yeah, it's around 24, 2500 calories. We held it for maintenance until we were 3 weeks out of the show, and we started increasing calories and carbohydrates week by week. We kept protein fairly high. Fats levels started to climb about 5 to 10 grams every week. And during show day, we sort of had the same food. Therefore, the loading and the body response is a little bit more predictable. And we gradually increased body weight for about roughly about a kilo for per week. So that was my loading. Yeah, that was my loading. And then I do think that the one thing that I could have done better was increase a little bit more sodium. I was a little hesitant on the 2020 show for the sodium intake. I should have been a little, I could have put a little bit of faith, a little bit more faith in it and add that bigger slice of salt in some of my foods.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's crazy how much like that salt will help allow more fullness too.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy just like having that because like that's the same thing with my clients. Like before they're going on stage, like usually we're having a big bout of sodium,
Yeah.
and you just see the veins just start to really pop, the vascularity, and then just even that fullness. Even if somebody's a little bit too flat, that can just even allow for a bit more fullness to the physique as well.
So that would be that would how would be we'll probably approach the show I think the same way. I think you yourself as well will probably approach the show the same way as we did. It has shown that this it's coming a little bit more common now with a lot of other athletes, slowly feeding into the show instead of rushing at everything into peak week. So I think that's a really good thing, the right push direction on how bodybuilding has improved over time. But going back on it, I think being on diet breaks and being on this like severe deficit for such an extended period of time, as you said, being extended. For me, it was from beginning of January till now, so that was almost 8 weeks. So 8 weeks of harsh dieting. What is there are a lot of limitations on while being on bodybuilding prep. So probably some of the things are that we have to go through a strict diet, of course, and there's a lot of social limitations that we can't go through. And for me, for my experience, I've experienced like quite severe mood swings for the past week, and thank God I didn't lash them out at my wife. However, she's going through her own stress while going to school, and she's going to social events that also wanted me to tag along. And I had to say no to a couple of them, actually many of them, just due that I'm actually on prep. I'm fortunate enough that my wife also did bodybuilding before she does bikini, before she's going to school, so she understands what I'm actually going through. She understands the extreme bodybuilding prep is. She understands the fatigue and everything else. Uh, so I don't have any good stories to share on that end. But do you have any like good, or have you ever ran into a partner where you're on prep, but your other half does not understand bodybuilding itself?
Yeah, like so when it comes to prep, yeah, like I probably had like two ex-girlfriends in the past where the relationship definitely got quite shaky
Mhm.
during the time when I was in prep. I think a lot of it was just not being as like not communicating as much about the symptoms and about like what the prep actually looks like. But yeah, oftentimes like I've had a situation where an ex-girlfriend at the time, like she didn't have the best eating behaviors. So oftentimes when we were hanging out, she was bringing like fast food with her, bringing a lot of candies, bringing a lot of like stuff with her to hang out and come chill. And then it's just at the time, I was kind of, it was the first couple of preps I was in. I think some of that was probably from my first prep too. I just didn't know how to like handle that with like the ear to go with like when you're smelling those kind of foods, when you're seeing it, it sometimes can just create like agitation. And if you don't know how to manage yourself during that, like I just got a lot more irritable and more like argumentative. So like yeah, like the relationship just kind of got rocky. I was a bit more moody. When it comes to another huge thing, when it comes to relationships that doesn't get talked about enough, when it comes to natural bodybuilding, is just libido. Like when you're in competition and prep, and like you're getting very very lean, your libido is coming down over time. It's not that you can't do it, but it's just you don't want to do it as often.
Yeah.
And sometimes if your partner, if you're not like getting into it as much, then you're essentially like the relationship can feel kind of weird. They might feel like you don't like them anymore, and like so some of that kind of stuff can start to happen, and that's where like what I've noticed over prep is that even though you aren't feeling in the mood as much, you have to still take action. Like your stuff, though you may feel like you're not doing it, like it's still gonna work. Sometimes I've went through preps where I was like, man, like I don't even know. Yeah,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
everything gonna go well, but so like yeah, like it's still gonna work. You just have to put in the effort, and sometimes it just takes a little bit longer to get in the mood and stuff. But putting in that effort, even when you don't feel like doing it and your energy levels are really low. I know Jeff Alberts, we've had a couple of chats. The one he was coaching me last time, it's like, oh, just like buy her some flowers, make sure you're showing her affection, even though like maybe your brain is more focused on prep. And because that's another big thing with these kind of competitions is like it's awesome to have a goal. It's awesome to be locked in, but sometimes we get so tunnel visioned with our goal that other things in our life start to get kind of pushed to the side. So if it's either hanging out with friends or hanging out with your girlfriend, like I had another relationship where I was so busy at the time, like I was going to school full time in university. I was working like 20 hours a week. And I was prepping at the same time. And I also had a girlfriend at the time. And I found like I just wasn't putting in as much effort into the relationship because I was so focused on school. And that's so, yeah. So there's definitely, you got to make sure you have to put extra effort into the relationship when you are going through these times, just because that's often something that gets a little bit neglected as because when we are going through prep, our brain is solely focused on like staying alive. Like when you're getting super super lean, your body is just like yeah, like we're more focused on food than like sex. Like we're more focused on on the goal at hand than like having like conversations that like you become more aware of things that you don't really care as much about when when you're in prep. So if somebody's talking about drama, oftentimes you're like, okay, I don't want to talk about that. I just want to have a peace at mind right now, just because. So yeah, just being doing your best to still try to be emotional because that's another thing is I find for me personally I've noticed with other people is we're stop being as empathetic to people like we're more just like we get very blunt we're just like we can sometimes be like no I don't like that whereas like you could say it in a more caring kind of way so those are kind of some of the main things I would say we're having when I've been in relationships is just yeah, sometimes I catch myself being not the nicest person. So I that's where nowadays I try to take a little bit longer to respond to something that's maybe like kind of frustrating me and like try to think of the words that I can express so that I'm still caring but not being a dick about something. I don't know if that makes sense. Like have you noticed that yourself with relationships?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. It's a very good point, and there are times, um, even in a married relationship, I do believe there's times where you have to make an effort to, sustain the marriage. I think it's just like being any other relationship, even if it's just your partner. There are times where I still have to make an effort, to spend time with her. I don't want to say it's a good thing, but I would say that I could be more focused on prep is because my wife is also busy with school. So she doesn't have all the time in the world for me. So it's basically now I don't want to get to a stage where it kind of feels like roommates, where I'm doing my own prep thing and then she's doing her whole school thing, and then we don't really have sort of like quote unquote time together. Usually, this is something that we commonly hear. The other half would probably be reaching out, saying, "Hey, you don't have like us time no more. It's like only you and I'm doing my stuff," and they get lonely. And now, I try to make an effort. So things like she would have gatherings with her new friends, I would say her new class buddies. They would have different activities, and I would see if I could go to and support them on some things. For instance, if they're having, of course, a potluck or like if they're dining out, then those are things that I probably would avoid. However, they do have other activities like badminton. That is something that I could join in. I probably just down a protein shake so I don't feel that tired. And then that could be, that could contribute to my quote unquote cardio and just exert another, I don't know, 150 to 200 calories there. So that is something on those that I would be share her part of her life, and you get to meet on some of her new friends. At least I know who she's hanging out with. And so for me, it's a little bit more simple for me. I don't hang out. I don't really hang out with anybody. Um, it's that, or either I hang out with you, once or twice every week online, or I'm with the other gym trainers at the private studio that I train my clients. And that's the only people I see most of the time. Therefore, she knows them, she knows you. She's not that worried of who I'm around. But I try to come up with activities for us to do together that we can do together. It would probably not be cooking or dining out. That's something that I can't do. However, I think walks or movies, well, the weather is kind of like spring is coming and it's getting a little bit more warm, at least hopefully. And we can go out for movies, which we still haven't done. And yeah, and she tends to be a little bit resistant to walks, and especially in this weather, it's raining. But we can do hangouts and stuff. So I think these are some of the tactics I would turn to if your other half isn't prioritizing the same goals as you are.
Yeah, like to think back to like social events. So like I actually just went to a buddy's Mario Kart drinking party the other
Nice.
the other weekend there. And like, so I advocate myself one drink, one low calorie drink, and that's it. But the way the game worked with Mario Kart is like you would have a drink and you'd have to finish your drink before you finish the race. So for me, I had one alcoholic beverage that I fitted into my calories, but the rest of it I was literally just chugging Diet Pop. While all these guys are getting like smashed, I'm like just sitting there chugging Diet Pop while I'm trying to raise. So like I feel like there are ways you can go about doing that. It depends what phase you are in prep. Like like if you're like real close to like stage condition and like you're like very irritable, very hungry, very low energy at night, it's probably going to be very torturous going to something like that. Especially they had snacks and stuff there too. I was kind of just sitting away from the snacks. I was just kind of chilling on the couch and stuff where they didn't really have much food. So I was just trying to do things to reduce temptation and stuff. So I do think you can do these kind of events if you know that you're gonna be able to manage and not accidentally slip up on your diet. Because I feel like there's a couple of types of people. Like some people can go to these events and be fine, and like the peer pressure doesn't get to them. Some people, it's like it just kind of eats away, and you feel guilty for not having the food, and then it just turns into like you're kind of resenting people, and then it you can just kind of give off a like not the best vibe.
Yeah.
So you gotta just make sure that you're managing yourself. And since I've went through the prep so many times, I can generally manage myself. Last prep, I actually went to a concert between the last show or the my second last show of the year and the last show of the year back in 2022. Probably wasn't the best idea. As like yeah, I ended up staying up till I think like 1 in the morning. Like everybody was drinking around me. I think I just had a couple like tokes of weed and like was just a little bit stoned. But like, man, I felt probably the worst I felt all that prep when I was there. Like we ended up going on to the area. Like we were sitting down originally, so I was like fine, but then everybody was willing to go up to the area where you would stand up close to the stage. So we went and did that, and I just felt like I was like sleeping, like I was like in like a dream state while I was there, just because I was so tired. So I feel like there's definitely a fine balance between doing events to like please others and like to make sure that you're not going to mess up your prep. So I probably wouldn't do that again that close to the show, but if it's further out, I'll do it. So I find it's a fine balance between making sure that you can still have fun and you can not just consistently say no for like say like 20 weeks straight, but if there's a couple weeks in there, especially if you're digging where you're saying no to things, I think that's totally okay. But it's just having that fine balance.
I agree. And yeah, just picking the activities, I think it's also important. So where you're during prep, I think energy availability is very limited. We're not eating that much already, so we don't really have that much energy to spare. Yet just getting through the day itself with working and basic life stuff that we have to go through. That's also very, very important, I think. So there is something that we have planned for April. So April is when your wife's semester break. That's when her break is going to be. She only has like 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks in between, and that's the only time we get to do stuff together. But that being said, I'm literally 6 to 4 weeks out from the show.
Yeah.
So I think the only thing I found myself another hobby to do. It's a very expensive hobby. I'm modifying the car for me to be able to do some off-roading. That's something that has picked up late last year, and that is something that does not require food. So thank God for that. And it just takes a lot of time just driving to wherever up in the mountains and having a group of that little community of off-roaders. And that's an activity that we can share together. She hasn't been, therefore, that is something she would get to experience this year. I've done it 3, 4 times. I've done some alone. For those who are also into off-road, please don't do that. It's very, very dangerous if you're going off-road alone. Usually up in the mountains, there's no reception. So if you're stuck, you're stuck. Um, so don't
Yeah.
do, yeah, no, never do. I picked those very, very easy trails where we still have reception in those higher up in the mountains. I could get down safely. So if you're doing on those more fun trails, don't go alone. Um, and during those times, we're usually talking about a 2 to 3 hour trip. And within that time period, I would probably feed before, and I would probably bring a protein shake or some protein bars on the way. Number one, keep the protein intake high and just keep ourselves from, hunger levels, like elevating hunger levels. By the time you get back, you're just way too dehydrated and you're just hungry from the trip. And that brings us just to planning your meals throughout the day as well. But I do think that if going back to planning your meals and also working with your other half, as you did mention too, you're having parties, you're having social events. Would you actually bring, let's say if you and your other half has this, house party, like would you bring your own food, like have your own little Tupperware?
Yeah.
Or how would you work around that? Or bring a
Usually
potluck?
I would just eat before and like have it so like at least a little bit of that hunger is like down.
Yeah,
And then I would just try not to be like, if possible, around the area that has food. Like they kept like all the food and stuff in the kitchen area,
yeah,
and I was just kind of chilling so I didn't really like notice it much or smell it as much. So like little things like that can actually go quite a long ways. But yeah, if say for example you have a busy day and like you haven't had any food yet, yeah, I would definitely bring like your own food or look at the options that they have there. Most of the time, if it's very snacky food, it's usually not going to be the best and most satiating, and you're probably not going to be able to accurately measure it out if they're making like homemade dishes and stuff. So yeah, usually, especially if you're deep into prep, I wouldn't be picking out that stuff. If you're on the early phases of prep and like you're ahead of schedule and stuff, I would guesstimate a little bit and just overestimate. So if I look at something and I find something similar in my fitness pal, I'll just add like 10, 20% to it. So I'm like, okay, I at least know that I'm overestimating it. So the likelihood of me having more than I am is very low.
yeah,
So those are some tricks that I'll use. Even eating out, like so Em and I will pretty much eat out or like have order skip or something once per week. And like with that meal, I'll try to find things that have their ingredients online. Though oftentimes it's not going to be super accurate. I'll look at those meals and then just overestimate. So like I'm like, oh, so if something has like 800 calories, oftentimes I'll just put it as like 900 or 1,000 calories just to be safe. That way, I have that flexibility and that kind of slight looseness with the tracking, so I can kind of, I don't know. There's something always about eating out where it just kind of helps reduce, I would say, like diet fatigue and cravings. But if you can do it in a way like I try to do, where you can still kind of overestimate and make sure that you're not blowing your calories, then that works really well. And oftentimes I'll do that on like my refeeds. Like one of my refeeds, I'll have one meal out
Yeah.
and fit it in there that way. If I do notice, okay, like we're not seeing the trends downward as much and we're getting close to show, I'll cut that out because I'm like, okay, I might be having more calories than I am. But yeah, when you've done this as many times as I have, you kind of get an understanding of how to track those foods out and understanding if you're making progress, if you're not. If you're somebody that's brand new to prepping, this is your first show, you got to be very careful with that because like some meals out, you can look at my fitness pal and be like, oh, this sounds about right. Oh, it's 800 calories. And then you actually look up it on like the actual website. It's like 1,700 calories. So there's a very large range in terms of those calories out. So if you're not careful with that tracking, you could be having a lot more than you think you are.
Yeah, because I think you make a really good point, and there's something I did want to mention to all of our listeners. Um, I'm not trying to shit on anybody, but just wanted to make a reminder to all listeners and anybody who's watching. So if you see coaches out there, including myself, and if we tell you quote unquote flexible diet for your first bodybuilding prep, flexible diet, yes, but it's not as flexible as you think it is. Um, the thing about that is we allow different variety of foods, but that does not mean eating out constantly or quote unquote once a week, especially if it's your first prep show. That's I think that's also that also just solidifies on what you just said on if it's your first bodybuilding prep, the range and it's just the experience of tracking and understanding foods is not quite, experienced and mature yet. So you need time and effort. And again, tracking food and training is it goes hand in hand. It's also a skill that it takes time to learn as well. So just keep that in mind. If it's your first bodybuilding prepping show, I would recommend you be a little bit more strict with a lot of your foods and training as well. Really listen to what your coaches are telling you in terms of training executions. There are difference between training smart and training with enough intensity, but that's for another time. Um, but on the track of so that just kind of closes on what I want to piggyback off what you said. There is just one more thing that I did want to. So we've talked about ourselves for the past, I don't know, 40 minutes. How's Emma's prep?
Oh, it's been good. Like there was a time period where she was like sick for almost 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So she was kind of still in a slight deficit during that time. So her weight hasn't been dropping quite as much as her and her coach have been planning, but she's also, I think, gained some muscle back after that time period of being sick because she is looking leaner and leaner. So things seem to be coming along quite nicely. It's also really nice having her prep and me prep at the same time. We'll see how it gets when we're both like super lean and both really irritable. But so far it's been nice because we kind of have the same similar routine, like for cardio, or like for getting steps in, for going to the gym and stuff. We set it up so we're doing it at the same time. So it makes it work for spending time together. And the same thing with the weekends. Like it's nice to have somebody that's in the same position where it's like, okay, like we both know we can't be spending so much time around these foods, or like doing things that revolve around food a lot. Like we'll have her maybe one meal out per week where we're tracking, that we're overestimating, that we're making sure that we're getting close to it. But yeah, it's nice to be able to do similar activities and not stress about, okay, like this person wants to go out and have some drinks and stuff like that. Whereas like right now we're both like, yeah, no, we don't want to have drinks. Like if we go out, we'll have like a non-alcoholic drink thingy. So like, um, No, it's been good. Like she's been doing really good with her prep. Like I'm excited to see. Like I think she's gonna have a good amount more tissue, possibly like 3 to 5 more pounds than last time she was on stage. Her posing is looking really good. Like her coach has been really dialing that in with her. So no, I'm really excited to see. I think it's gonna be a night and day difference with her package this year.
Is she going to be in Kelowna?
Yeah, so she's gonna do the Kelowna WMBF show. She's gonna do the probably the Edmonton WMBF show as well, depending on how things turn out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, no, it's gonna be good. Like me, you, her.
Oh,
Um,
I'll get to see
mhm,
her.
yeah, and then I got another client too competing. Well, I guess he'll be competing in the Edmonton show. I got like I guess 3 clients competing in the Edmonton show. I might try to see if some guys want to come to the Kelowna show too. But no, man, it's gonna be a good time.
Are your clients like shorter or are they taller?
They're gonna be doing like one guy is doing men's physique. I think we'll probably keep it to Edmonton just to make sure he's nice and dialed in for that. The
Mm.
other two bodybuilders, they're just bodybuilders. Or I might see if one wants to do classic too.
Keep
But
them away from men's physique.
But no, man, it's gonna be fun. Like it's, I'm not sure how big the WMBF Kona show is looking right now, but I'm hoping it's gonna be a decent size.
Yeah. Even though I do know, I can't tell you if, but I honestly, I don't know. I know so far we have quite a bit of people for Vancouver. It's going to be very similar to last year, and we're expecting a little bit more since it's being in March. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Do you
Yeah.
think you can convince some of those guys that are doing Vancouver to probably do Kelowna as well?
Some I've asked, I've done, the three workshops. So the workshop in February, and then we did two posing workshops just last week. And we've talked to some of them, and not everybody's willing to travel out to Kelowna, though it's 2 weeks. It's cost, and some of them may just want to do that one show in Vancouver and just call it. And that's some bikinis are willing to travel over there. For men's, I haven't ran into one that will see in Kelowna. We was there. Some of them are still thinking about it.
I'll see if I can get some people from the CPA in the BC Cup. Like, hey, you want to come to this show? As long as
Don't.
they didn't beat me. Just
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah. Please don't.
No, I don't care. I'm always up for like competition. Like I would way rather try to get a pro card with like a big show than one that there's not like there's barely enough people for a pro card. I find like I just feel better in myself in getting a pro card when I feel like I honestly deserve it. So yeah.
Yeah, I understand it. So even like last year when I was judging for Kelowna show, there wasn't many athletes. I wouldn't say there's many athletes, but every athlete that stepped on the Kelowna stage was stacked. So it's not really a quantity. It's more of
Yeah.
a every athlete has, a very high caliber quality. You can see, Lauren was up, that she won her bikini, her very first show. Man, her physique was stacked. I think Brad prepped her.
Okay.
Yeah, Brad
Nice.
prepped her, right? And then,
Yeah.
yeah, it was amazing. And she did well in Calgary for her pro show. And I think she went to Worlds, but I don't remember what she placed.
Yeah. I think the world so this year was just so stacked that everybody was having a hard time creeping up and placing. So,
Yeah.
but no, she looked awesome. Like she definitely brought a really good package.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. But yeah, so just dialing back to, what our topic was. I just want to remind all listeners, that, support is also a very important part of the relationship. It's a two-way street, honestly. So I hope our experience, at least your experience, Brandon, I didn't really share much, really helps, to acknowledge your partner's needs and just creating opportunities to spend time with each other and share experience and make goals very, very clear. And let's hope things don't get toxic, evaluate your relationship dynamic with each other. And that would just bring your relationship a long way. Just remember, bodybuilding is just a temporary thing. You can't be an athlete for life. Bodybuilding is temporary, and your relationship is the long thing. So
Yeah.
prioritizing your life is also important. That's it for me. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I would just say, like, again, like you want to be on stage and having people there watching and supporting you. So if you're treating those people not well, they're probably not going to come watch you and support you. So yeah, you at the end of the prep, you want to make sure that you're keeping these relationships intact so that you're supported. Because like, yeah, when that show ends, you don't want to be like, okay, I just destroyed this friendship, this relationship, this position at work. You want to make sure that you're doing everything in your power to still put emphasis on that and balance it with your prep.
Yeah, I agree. That's very, very well said. So again, relationships are very individualized to all of you. So if any questions or anything that you want us to address, you can send us DMs or leave in your comments section below. We'll check them out. But anything that we'll probably close this until next time. So thanks for listening and thanks for tuning in.